The Unseen Ink: How Childhood Trauma Shaped Literary Masterpieces. Wounds make better liars than lovers. The raw, unflinching honesty of Sylvia Plath's poetry, echoing her own battles with depression and the loss of her father at a young age, cuts to the heart of a difficult truth. Pain, particularly the pain of childhood trauma, can become a powerful, if destructive, muse. The connection between early adversity and creative expression, particularly in the realm of literature, has long been observed. Though it's vital to acknowledge that trauma is never a requirement for great writing, many authors create masterpieces from lives untouched by such deep scars. Yet, for some of history's most celebrated authors, the echoes of childhood trauma resonate throughout their works, shaping their themes, characters, and even their narrative styles. This video will delve into how childhood trauma, while undoubtedly devastating, can serve as a catalyst for literary genius, offering a crucible of raw emotion, a drive for profound introspection, and a unique lens through which to examine the complexities of human existence. In a first step, we will define trauma and its psychological impact before moving on to 5 case studies of authors and their works. These 5 case studies present the life and works of Sylvia Plath, Edgar Allan Poe, Virginia Woolf, Charles Dickens, and Maya Angelou. We will then dive into the particularities of the creative process and its relationship to trauma before dealing with various counterarguments and nuances, dealing with the relationship of childhood trauma and literature before presenting our conclusions, defining trauma and its psychological impact before exploring the profound influence of childhood trauma on literary giants. It's crucial to establish a shared understanding of what constitutes trauma and how it affects a young, developing mind. Childhood trauma, in its simplest terms, refers to experiences that overwhelm a child's capacity to cope, creating a lasting sense of fear, helplessness, or horror. These experiences are not limited to dramatic, single incidents. They encompass a broad spectrum of adversity. This can include physical, sexual, or emotional abuse, neglect, whether physical or emotional, the loss of a parent or primary caregiver, witnessing domestic violence or violence in the community, experiencing natural disasters, or enduring chronic instability and insecurity, such as extreme poverty or frequent displacement. It is the subjective experience of the child, their feeling of being overwhelmed and powerless, that defines the event as traumatic rather than the objective nature of the event itself. The psychological impact of such experiences on a child is profound and far-reaching. The developing brain is particularly vulnerable to the neurobiological effects of trauma, impacting emotional regulation, the formation of a secure sense of self, and the development of a coherent worldview. Several key areas are significantly affected. Memory and narrative. Traumatic memories are often not stored in the same way as ordinary memories. They can be fragmented, disorganized, and highly sensory, dominated by vivid images, sounds, and physical sensations, rather than a clear chronological narrative. This fragmentation can lead to difficulties in recalling the events accurately and consistently, and it can create a compelling need to reconstruct the past, to piece together the shattered fragments of experience and create a coherent story. This drive to make sense of the unspeakable often finds expression in literature through nonlinear narratives, stream of consciousness techniques, and a focus on the subjective experience of memory, emotional intensity. Childhood trauma can significantly disrupt emotional development. Children exposed to trauma may experience heightened levels of anxiety, depression, anger, shame, and guilt. They may struggle to regulate their emotions, leading to outbursts, withdrawal, or difficulty forming healthy attachments. These intense, often overwhelming emotions can become a powerful source of creative energy, fueling the passionate and evocative language found in much trauma-informed literature. The rawness and intensity of the emotional landscape of the traumatized individual can translate into compelling and emotionally resonant writing. Defense mechanisms. To cope with the overwhelming pain and fear associated with trauma, children develop various defense mechanisms. These are unconscious psychological strategies designed to protect the self from unbearable emotional distress. Some common defense mechanisms include dissociation, a detachment from reality, a feeling of being outside one's body, or as if the world is unreal. This can manifest in literature as a detached narrative voice, surreal imagery, or a blurring of the lines between reality and fantasy. Repression, pushing traumatic memories and feelings out of conscious awareness. In literature, this can appear as gaps in the narrative, unexplained behaviors, or symbolic representations of the sublimation. Channeling unacceptable impulses or emotions into socially acceptable activities, such as art, music, or writing. This is arguably the most relevant defense mechanism to our topic, as it directly links trauma to creative expression. The energy and intensity of repressed trauma can be redirected and transformed into artistic output. Search for meaning. Trauma shatters a child's sense of safety and predictability, leaving them grappling with fundamental questions about the nature of the world and their place in it. This can lead to a profound search for meaning, purpose, and connection. The traumatized individual may struggle with existential questions, seeking answers in philosophy, religion, or, importantly, in art. Literature can become a vehicle for exploring these questions, for grappling with the inherent unfairness of life, and for seeking solace or redemption in the face of suffering. It is crucial, however, to emphasize a critical distinction. Experiencing trauma does not automatically equate to literary talent or success. While trauma can provide the raw material and emotional intensity that fuel powerful writing, it is the processing and transformation of that trauma, combined with inherent skill and craft, that ultimately leads to great literature. The ability to articulate the inarticulable, to shape chaotic experiences into coherent narratives, and to connect with readers on a deeply emotional level, requires not just pain, but also artistry. Trauma is a catalyst, not a guarantee, of literary genius. Many individuals endure horrific experiences without ever becoming writers, and many brilliant writers have led lives relatively free from trauma. It is the unique intersection of trauma, talent, and the will to create that gives rise to the literature we will explore in the following chapters. Case studies, authors and their works. The connection between childhood trauma and literary output is vividly illustrated through the lives and works of numerous authors. Examining these case studies reveals how deeply personal experiences of adversity can be transmuted. Through the 1. Sylvia Plath, 1932–1963. Biographical sketch. Plath's life was marked by profound emotional turmoil. Her father, Otto Plath, died when she was 8, a loss that deeply affected her and became a recurring theme in her work. She battled depression throughout her life, undergoing electroconvulsive therapy and attempting suicide multiple times. Her marriage to poet Ted Hughes was tumultuous and ultimately ended in separation amidst accusations of infidelity and emotional abuse. Analysis of key works. The Bell Jar, 1963, Plath's semi-autobiographical novel, chronicles the descent of Esther Greenwood, a young woman, into mental illness. The suffocating societal expectations placed on women, the trauma of loss, and the struggle for identity are central themes. The bell jar itself symbolizes the oppressive weight of depression and societal constraints. Plath's poetry, particularly in collections like Ariel, 1965, is intensely personal and often confessional. Poems like Daddy explore her complex and unresolved feelings towards her father, using stark, violent imagery to convey anger, grief, and a sense of betrayal. The emotional tone is raw, often bordering on rage and despair. Themes: depression, death, patriarchal oppression, identity crisis, mental illness. Characters: Esther Greenwood, a stand-in for Plath herself, father figures who are both idealized and demonized. Imagery and symbolism: the bell jar, bees, the moon, water, often associated with drowning or suffocation. Narrative style: the bell jar employs a first-person narrative, giving the reader intimate access to Esther's thoughts and feelings. Plath's poetry is characterized by its striking imagery, confessional tone, and use of symbolism. Emotional tone: depressed, angry, despairing, occasionally tactly humorous. Direct quote: to the person in the bell jar, blank and stopped as a dead baby, the world itself is the bad dream. The Bell Jar, 2 Edgar Allan Poe, 1809–1849. Biographical sketch: Poe's life was marked by early loss and instability. His father abandoned the family, and his mother died of tuberculosis when he was just 2 years old. He was taken in by John Allan, a wealthy merchant, but their relationship was strained, and Poe struggled with poverty and gambling debts throughout his life. The deaths of several women he loved, including his young wife Virginia, further deepened his sense of loss and fueled his preoccupation with death and decay. Analysis of key works: The Telltale Heart, 1843, and The Black Cat, 1843, are classic examples of Poe's Gothic tales, exploring themes of guilt, madness, and the disintegration of the self. The narrators are often unreliable, driven by paranoia and obsession. The Raven, 1845, Poe's most famous poem, is a haunting meditation on loss and grief. The Raven, a symbol of death and remembrance, becomes a constant reminder of the narrator's lost love, Lenore. Themes: death, loss, grief, madness, guilt, the macabre, the supernatural. Characters: often unreliable narrators, figures haunted by guilt or loss, victims of violence or madness. Imagery and symbolism: darkness, decay, ravens, cats, eyes, enclosed spaces. Narrative style: Poe often uses first-person narration to create a sense of immediacy and psychological intensity. His writing is characterized by its vivid imagery, suspenseful atmosphere, and use of sound devices. Emotional tone: melancholy, despairing, terrifying, suspenseful. Direct quote: and my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted, nevermore. The Raven. 3. Virginia Woolf, 1882–1941. Biographical sketch: Woolf experienced significant trauma in her childhood, including the death of her mother when she was 13, and the death of her half-sister Stella shortly after. She also suffered sexual abuse at the hands of her half-brothers, George and Gerald Duckworth. Throughout her life, she struggled with mental illness, experiencing periods of severe depression and ultimately taking her own life. Analysis of key works: Mrs. Dalloway, 1925, follows a single day of Clarissa Dalloway. The usage of stream of consciousness and exploration of internal thoughts shows the suppressed trauma of Septimus Warren Smith, a war veteran. The lasting effects of traumatic events are also symbolized by the omnipresence of time and Big Ben. To the Lighthouse, 1927, is deeply autobiographical, reflecting Woolf's own family dynamics and the lingering impact of her mother's death. The novel explores themes of loss, memory, and the complexities of human relationships. Themes: time, memory, loss, death, internal consciousness. Characters wrestling with internal conflicts, suppressed emotions, and the passage of time. Imagery and symbolism: the sea, lighthouses, flowers, parties, narrative style, stream of consciousness, emotional tone, melancholy, reflective, introspective, at times joyful, but overshadowed by a sense of loss. Direct quote, what is the meaning of life? That was all a simple question, one that tended to close in on one with years. The great revelation had never come. The great revelation perhaps never did come. Instead, there were little daily miracles, illuminations, matches struck unexpectedly in the dark. 4. Charles Dickens, 1812 to 1870. Biographical sketch. Dickens experienced a traumatic event in his childhood, when his father was imprisoned for debt, and at the age of 12, Dickens was sent to work in a bootblacking factory. The difficult conditions and feelings of abandonment affected him deeply. Analysis of key works. Oliver Twist, 1838, depicts the harsh realities of poverty, child labor, and the criminal underworld in Victorian England. Oliver, an orphan, is subjected to abuse and exploitation, reflecting Dickens's own experiences. David Copperfield, 1850, is a semi-autobiographical Bildungsroman. Many aspects of David's childhood experiences mirror Dickens' own, including working at a young age and difficult family life. Themes: poverty, social injustice, child labor, crime, abuse, redemption. Characters: orphans, abused children, criminals, benevolent figures who offer hope and redemption. Imagery and symbolism: darkness of London, workhouses, factories. Narrative style: social realism, social commentary. Emotional tone: anger at social injustice, empathy, hope. Direct quote, I know enough of the world now to have almost lost the capacity of being much surprised by anything. David Copperfield. 5. Maya Angelou, 1928 to 2014. Biographical sketch. Angelou endured a deeply traumatic childhood. At the age of 7, she was raped by her mother's boyfriend. After she testified against him, he was murdered, leading Angelou to believe she had caused his death with her words. She became mute for nearly 5 years. Her experiences with racism in the segregated South also profoundly shaped her worldview. Analysis of key works. I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, 1969. The first volume of her autobiography recounts her early life, including the rape and its aftermath, as well as her experiences with racism and her journey to self-acceptance. The caged bird becomes a powerful symbol of the constraints placed upon Black women in America. Themes: racism, sexism, trauma, resilience, identity, self-discovery, the power of language. Characters: strong Black women, abusive figures, mentors who provide guidance and support. Imagery and symbolism: the caged bird, the store, a symbol of community and resilience, the landscape of the South. Narrative style: autobiographical, lyrical, poetic, infused with the rhythms of Black vernacular speech. Emotional tone: painful, honest, ultimately hopeful, and empowering. Direct quote, there is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you. I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. These 5 case studies, while diverse in their specific details, reveal a common thread: the transformative power of literature to confront and process childhood trauma. These authors, through their courage and artistry, turned their pain into enduring works that continue to resonate with readers today, offering insights into the human condition and the enduring capacity for resilience. The creative process and trauma. Writing as catharsis. The act of writing, particularly when it engages with deeply personal and painful experiences, can be far more than a mere literary exercise. For many authors who have endured childhood trauma, the creative process becomes a vital tool for survival, a means of navigating the turbulent inner landscape shaped by their past. Writing in this context serves as a powerful form of catharsis, a way to release, process, and ultimately transform traumatic memories and emotions. One of the most fundamental ways writing provides catharsis is through its capacity for emotional release. The blank page becomes a safe space, a confidant that absorbs the overwhelming feelings that may be too difficult or dangerous to express elsewhere. Pouring these emotions onto the page, the rage, the grief, the fear, the shame, can provide a sense of relief, a lessening of the internal pressure that trauma often creates. It's a visceral act, a way to externalize the internal turmoil and gain a degree of distance and control over it. Sigmund Freud's concept of sublimation offers a valuable lens through which to understand this process. Sublimation, in Freudian terms, is a defense mechanism where socially unacceptable impulses or feelings, often stemming from trauma or repressed desires, are channeled into more acceptable, even constructive outlets. In the case of writing, the raw, potentially destructive energy of traumatic experiences, the anger, the aggression, the despair, can be transformed into creative energy. The act of writing becomes a way to sublimate these unacceptable emotions, giving them a form and a purpose that is both personally meaningful and potentially valuable to others. Beyond emotional release, writing offers a powerful means of creating order from chaos. Traumatic memories, as discussed earlier, are often fragmented and disorganized. The act of writing, with its inherent structure and linearity, can impose a sense of order on these fragmented experiences, shaping the chaotic jumble of memories and emotions into a narrative, even a fictionalized one, provides a sense of control and coherence. The writer, in effect, becomes the architect of their own experience, reconstructing the past and imposing a framework of meaning upon it. Furthermore, literature provides a unique space for exploring the unspeakable. Many traumatic experiences, particularly those involving abuse or violence, are shrouded in silence, either due to shame, fear, or societal taboos. Writing, especially fiction, allows authors to explore these experiences indirectly, through metaphor, symbolism, and fictional characters. They can give voice to the things that are too painful or difficult to say directly, creating a safe distance from the raw trauma, while still engaging with its core emotional truths. This act of giving voice to the previously unspoken is profoundly liberating, breaking the isolating power of silence. The cathartic power of writing extends beyond the individual author. By sharing their stories, even in fictionalized form, writers create opportunities for connecting with others. Readers who have experienced similar traumas may find validation and a sense of shared experience, realizing they are not alone in their pain. Even readers who have not experienced the specific traumas depicted can gain empathy and understanding. This connection, this shared recognition of vulnerability and resilience, is a crucial part of the healing process, both for the writer and the reader. The act of creating and sharing literature transforms private suffering into a shared human experience. However, it is essential to issue a crucial caveat. While writing can be a profoundly therapeutic tool, it is not a replacement for professional mental health support. Writing about trauma can be a powerful adjunct to therapy, but it should not be seen as a substitute for the guidance and expertise of a trained therapist. The process of confronting traumatic memories can be intensely painful and destabilizing, and it's crucial to have appropriate support systems in place. Writing can be a pathway to healing, but it is often a journey best undertaken with professional guidance. The pen can be mighty, but it is not a magic wand. It is a tool, and like any tool, it should be used responsibly and with an awareness of its limitations. Counterarguments and nuances. Not all great writers experienced trauma. While this video has explored the significant influence of childhood trauma on the works of several literary giants, it is crucial to acknowledge the inherent complexities and nuances of this relationship. To suggest that trauma is a necessary ingredient for literary greatness would be a gross oversimplification and, indeed, a dangerous fallacy. This chapter will address several important counterarguments and ethical considerations. First and foremost, it must be stated unequivocally that many successful and profoundly influential authors have led lives relatively free from significant childhood trauma. Jane Austen, William Shakespeare. Though we have limited biographical details, J.R.R. Tolkien and countless others demonstrate that profound insights into the human condition, masterful storytelling, and literary brilliance can arise from a wide range of experiences, not solely from adversity. Creativity springs from many sources: keen observation, intellectual curiosity, imagination, empathy, and a deep engagement with the world, all of which can flow. To imply otherwise would be to diminish the achievements of these authors and to misrepresent the diverse wellsprings of artistic inspiration. Furthermore, and this point cannot be overstated, trauma does not guarantee greatness. The experience of trauma, in and of itself, does not imbue an individual with literary talent. Millions of people endure horrific childhood experiences without ever becoming writers, let alone achieving literary acclaim. The connection we have explored is not one of simple cause and effect. Rather, it is the intersection of trauma, innate talent, acquired skill, and the complex, often arduous process of transforming personal experience into art that may, in some cases, contribute to literary achievement. The ability to craft compelling narratives, to develop nuanced characters, to master language, and to connect with readers on an emotional level requires a specific skill set that is independent of, though potentially shaped by, traumatic experiences. Trauma can be a catalyst, but it is not the sole creator. It's also vital to address the danger of romanticizing suffering. While exploring the connection between trauma and creativity, there is a risk of inadvertently glorifying adversity, suggesting that pain is somehow a desirable or even necessary prerequisite for artistic achievement. This is a deeply problematic and inaccurate notion. Trauma is, unequivocally, a destructive force. It causes immense pain, disrupts development, and can have lifelong consequences. To present it as a gift or a source of artistic benefit is to minimize the very real harm it inflicts and to misunderstand the complex relationship between suffering and creativity. The authors discussed earlier did not benefit from their trauma. They transcended it, often at great personal cost, transforming their pain into something meaningful through their art. Finally, it's imperative to acknowledge the ethical considerations involved in both reading and writing about trauma. When engaging with literature that depicts trauma, readers should approach the work with sensitivity and respect, recognizing the profound human experiences at its core. It is not entertainment. It is a window into the lived reality of others, often reflecting deep pain and vulnerability. Similarly, writers who choose to explore traumatic themes have a responsibility to do so with honesty, integrity, and an awareness of the potential impact on both themselves and their readers. Exploitation, sensationalism, and gratuitous depictions of violence or abuse have no place in ethical storytelling. The goal should always be understanding, empathy, and a deeper appreciation of the complexities of the human experience, not voyeurism or the perpetuation of harm. The power of literature to illuminate the darkest corners of human experience comes with a responsibility to wield that power with care and respect. Conclusion. In conclusion, the relationship between childhood trauma and literary achievement remains profoundly complex and multifaceted. While this exploration has highlighted instances where early adversity, fueled the creative fire of literary giants, it's crucial to reiterate that trauma is not a prerequisite. Rather, it serves as a potent, yet not exclusive catalyst within a broader equation involving innate talent, honed skill, and the capacity to transform personal pain into art. The ability to articulate the inarticulable, to shape chaotic experience into coherent narratives, requires not just the raw material of suffering, but also profound artistry and resilience. Many individuals endure significant trauma without ever becoming writers, and countless masterful works have been created by authors who experienced relatively idyllic childhoods. The profound insights into the human condition, found in great literature, stem from a multitude of sources: keen observation, intellectual curiosity, empathy, and a deep engagement with the world. To imply that trauma is a singular key to literary greatness is a dangerous oversimplification that diminishes the achievements of countless writers. Ultimately, the enduring power of literature lies in its capacity to explore the full spectrum of the human experience, including its darkest and most painful. The works examined in this video stand as testament to the transformative power of art, demonstrating the resilience of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable suffering. These narratives, born from trauma, offer not only profound insights into the human condition, but also a profound testament to the healing and empathetic power of storytelling. They prompt us to consider if the most poignant and enduring works of literature can emerge from such depths of suffering, what hope, empathy, and understanding can we cultivate in our own lives and offer to others who bear similar scars.